What is up, my friends? Welcome to my studio in Stratford, Ontario. This is my home. I do also live in Toronto some of the time, but this is where I live. I built my own studio and I love it. Um, I don't know where you're watching. You might be watching on Twitter or something, but I'm coming back on YouTube at least once a week now. It's really fun. The last couple of years, I've made 2,500 short videos talking about martial arts, breakdowns, analysis, a lot of Bruce Lee stuff. Sorry, Bruce Lee stuff. Analyzing movement and all that kind of stuff. And I love that. I love making these short videos of the beauty and the poetry of martial arts. It's a thrill, but it's also fun to hang and chat and think out loud and go a little deeper into some ideas, which is what I hope to do on my YouTube lives. I'm also taking an Ask Robin Black, once every week or two as well. So we're having fun. It's good to be back, and it's good to, I find, thinking in long-term, multi-layered ways, digging a little deeper into things is really, really stimulating for my brain and really useful for me personally, and I enjoy it. So I hope other people enjoy it too. Today, we're going to take some questions. We're going to hang out. Maybe every second or third topic, we're going to take some questions. But basically today, my thesis to begin with, we'll talk a little bit about karate combat, which I love working on. And we'll talk about Bruce Lee, and we'll talk about fighting and martial arts and life and all kinds of stuff. But I wanted to do something sort of fun and interesting today that I would find interesting and I'll enjoy, which hopefully means you'll enjoy it. And I want to take a look at some quotes and ideas from The Art of War, and then think them out loud, what the quote from The Art of War might mean, and then how it can apply to fighting, yes, but also to life. Like some of these quotes. So The Art of War, most people, I think, if you're watching Robin Black's YouTube channel, you probably are very familiar with The Art of War. That and the Book of Five Rings are probably the two pieces of. So Book of Five Rings is about a great swordsman, Musashi. The Art of War, written by Sun Tzu, is sort of a book of strategy. It's a book, they're both books of strategy, but it's a book of sort of military strategy. It's brilliant. It's one of the great books ever. If you have read it, read it again. It's the kind of thing you could read hundreds of times in your lifetime, and you'll look at it a little different every single time because you're a little different. There's saying, a man never steps in the same river twice because it is not the same river and he is not the same man, right? It is the same river, but that ain't the same water. It's gone. And you are not the same person. You're literally cellularly, your cells have changed and you have changed and what you know has changed. So you can read this book hundreds of times in your lifetime. And each time your understanding will be different and you'll interpret it different. Who's down? I'm going to just take a couple of quick comments. Sean McPherson, thanks, man. People say nice things to me, and I don't get a lot of hate, which is really weird and also awesome. But yeah, we'll take some comments and we'll take some questions. Feel free to put questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, put them in the thing. I think they'll appear in my thing. Please also bear with me and be patient with me, because although talking is something I'm super comfortable with, the little details of YouTube, it's been a few years since I've really been actively engaging here, and it's really fun that I am, and I'm super delighted, and thanks for being patient with me. Okay. If you just joined, the fastest recap in the world, we're going to look at quotes from The Art of War, and then we're going to think them out loud a little bit. You'll make some comments if you have them or questions, and then we're going to think, how might this apply to life? And we'll certainly be able to draw how it applies to fighting, and we'll look through that lens too, but how these quotes from The Art of War might apply to our lives. Many ways, right? You learn something, it can make you a better person, father, neighbor, gardener, at your job, entrepreneur, boss, whatever it is, employee, citizen, whatever. You can learn these things from philosophy and other ideas. One of the reasons I love watching fighting is I'll give you an example. You'll see a scenario and somebody is on top hurting someone and they get reversed, and now they're on the bottom in half guard. You can also, these are two different things. Well, I'm on top, I'm hurting you, you reverse me, and I'm on the bottom in half guard. Or I could have been mounted, being hit, and then I work my way back and I'm on the bottom in half guard. You would think that the second one, someone's hitting me and I work back to guard, is better. Oh, great, I've improved. And the other one's worse. I was in a great spot and now I'm in a worse spot. None of that matters because it's simply half guard and you know how to play half guard. It doesn't matter what the stage in your life is at, what you're at in your job, what you're at in fighting, whatever. Wherever you are is where you are. It doesn't matter how you got there, through improvement or some slip, it's the same position either way. How you interpret it is going to be up to you. So this is one of the thousands of things when I watch martial arts, I'll think, I'll often think, how can I see the world through this lens? So we're going to do that. So we're going to look at some quotes from The Art of War and we're going to think them out loud. I got a bunch of them in between. After we do one or two, take a few questions, come back, do some more. Maybe we'll hang out for an hour. And if you're, by the way, thanks for hanging out with me. It's a very cool thing. It's a really nice thing to be able to chill and share some thoughts and share them with people. Okay, first quote. These I picked somewhat at random. We could do this once a month for years and we wouldn't run out of things. It's a brilliant book, The Art of War. I don't physically have it because I also live in Toronto and it's there, but it is in my phone and I do listen to it a lot. Never venture, never win. All right, what are we talking about here? So let's talk about it from a military standpoint, from a martial arts, professional fighting type of standpoint, and then a life. Never venture, never win. Pretty simple, right? Don't try, fuck all happens, right? Don't try, you cannot succeed, right? Although I was grabbing a lot of these at random, I put this one first because I saw a picture the other day and it was saying, this is not failure. And it had a bunch of arrows that had missed. And then it said, this is failure. And the arrows had not been shot. And that is failure. There's a lot of people in the world right now. We all know some of them. Some of us maybe are one of these people at moments or at times. We're nothing. We're not fully formed things and we're not permanent. We can always change. But if you are in this situation, there are people afraid to do anything, because they have a worry about failure. And so the way to never venture, never win, never venture, never lose, right? But so people don't do things sometimes because it's risky and they might fail. And that is no way to live your life, right? How does this apply in war? Well, if I don't try, I can't be a victory. If I don't try to take that land or whatever the objective is in business is very much like combat. Sometimes a company is trying to take a market share. You don't try, it won't happen. In fighting, if you don't throw the punch, what is it they say? You miss 100% of the shots you never take, right? Like this is life. This applies to everyone's life. You must take risk, and how risk averse or how much you accept risk is really up to you. But some amount of risk, some amount of daring. Some people like to dare greatly. Some people like to dare a little, but you must dare. You must try. And it is a very common thing. There's a lot of reasons people are inactive or not trying the things. They'll be talking about one day we'll do the thing, but we don't do it. You really want to look in there and go, why am I doing this? Why am I not starting the company I said I wanted to start? Why am I not asking that man or woman out? Why am I not doing that? And often it's fear, and often it's fear of failure. Never venture, never win, right? So fucking try, right? A lot of the times when I'm getting worked up, this is really, really a delight to be back doing this. A lot of the times there's people have an idea of something they would like to do. Time fucking goes by. I'm in my 50s now, right? Like that's crazy. I can't believe it. My daughter was born 2.5 years ago. Like she's a little kid. Like time goes quick. One day the space between birth and death is all there is. And maybe you disagree, maybe you have some other belief, but certainly that's all we know. And that's all there currently is evidence of. That's it. That's it. You got to do the thing. You got to take the risk. You got to try the thing. You go talk to, your grandparents' friends or anyone seniors. Nobody's talking about, I should have worked more. I should have taken less risk. I should have. You got to live your life, right? You got to live your life. Never venture, never win. All right. That's fun. But you get the gist, right? Of what we're going to do. I love martial arts, right? I love martial arts. And it has been the great joy of my life. It's also given me everything that I have, that all from my family, my wife and my daughter, to my home and my travel and everything I've ever learned and my health. It's all been connected to martial arts. I love philosophy and I love the learning about life and growth. through martial arts. That's over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been lucky enough to be migrate away, slowly, but migrate away from like specifically combat sports and move towards life and growth and learning and philosophy and martial artistry and Bruce Lee's, history and all these other projects. And I've learned a lot. And it's a delight to be able to talk about these things. I'm going to see if there's a comment or a question or two. I'm not looking in the YouTube spot of it, comments, but I'm hoping that they come through. I'm on StreamYard. I'm hoping they come through in here. If they do not, I apologize. I'll get sorted a little better every time. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, let's move on. So if you just joined Art of War, looking at some Art of War quotes, thinking about and trying to interpret them as best we can to see how they might apply to fighting, but more so even to life. Okay, this is a great one, right? And this is a classic. People no matter how much you've read the Art of War, maybe you haven't, you've come across this, and there other people have paraphrased it in different ways. In the midst of chaos, there's also opportunity. Now, of course, from a military standpoint, in the mayhem, while we're all dealing with mayhem, we could infiltrate the enemy, we could sneak in behind, there's a million things. There are lots of opportunities within the chaos of combat that we can use. Of course, this applies when people are fighting. I commentate Karate Combat and Jorge Masvidal's Game Bred MMA, Levels Fight League, and in Amsterdam. I'm going there pretty soon. BKB and BYB and Bare Knuckle. I got a lot of cool shows in it, and they all apply. There's chaos within everything, right? There's chaos within boxing, and there's chaos within Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and there's chaos within karate. And within that chaos, sometimes there is distraction. There's a loss of focus. And if you can find your focus, and if you can zero in on your objective within the chaos, there is a lot of opportunity. But I remember there's nobody here younger than the 4 years it takes to be able, or 6 years it would take to be able to remember only a few years ago. One day I was at Bellator in Connecticut, and they were like, yeah, this is crazy pandemic thing. And people are kind of, oh, the NBA shut down. Oh, everything's shut down. And then I was like trying to get home. And I remember looking at this quote in those first few days where the whole world was shut down and thinking, this is true. Just because things have changed doesn't mean that there's not opportunity out there. So I commentate live fighting. That's a big part of my life. And most of us were like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? Live fighting suddenly stopped. And I was like, oh, well, this is my job. Like, what do I do? But what didn't stop? Suddenly I didn't realize it for a little bit, but I was doing a lot of work for Bellator at the time and many others. They didn't have live events. So they had to figure out how to still engage their audience. And the way they engaged their audience was in this thing, repurposing their content. And I was like, well, that's what I do. I take pieces of fighting and I look, we still call it a breakdown. Often people call it a breakdown, but I don't look at it that way from my own joy anymore. I look at it as just, I'm trying to enrich the experience of watching this. Sometimes I'll put a circle in the thing and an arrow, but that's just because I like doing that. I like seeing that. And I like drawing the eye to it. But I very rarely now just say he did this to create this, and now we use the feint to da-da-da. I try to look at, is there something poetic in this? Is there some analogy in this? Is there something musical or what's happening in the biochemistry? Like, I'm always looking for something different, but some of that happened because suddenly I'm sitting at home, I'm not commentating shows anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I do this full time now, which is also kind of why, coincidentally, I was off YouTube for a very long time, because although YouTube and sitting and having long form in-depth conversations was still an option, there was just so much happening for me in making short things during that time that's where I went. So that was one of those things. In the middle of the chaos, there was an opportunity. If you were Zoom, we all do Zooms like at work and stuff. Zoom, we never heard of Zoom. It was Skype. Everyone used Skype. And suddenly in that moment, there was a demand for something different in the chaos of shutdown and everything. And that company came along and took giant market share, made a military move to steal the market share and steal the attention. This applies to many things. Sometimes there's And think about this from the point of view of being a girlfriend or a husband or a father or something. Sometimes there's madness happening. Like you got a kid, or you're a family, or at work even. What are the opportunities sometimes that exist in the midst of chaos? Sometimes it's just learning. Sometimes it's literally just learning. In the midst of chaos, there is an opportunity to learn. There's also a chance to practice calmness, to calmness, the analytical calmness that it takes to handle madness and build something out of it. That's a practice, and the time to practice it is in chaos. When you see these fights where it's mayhem. Paul Daly versus Nick Diaz, that round. That's one of my favorite rounds ever. That's chaos. That's chaos. Nick Diaz made it chaos. Now, I'm going to go on a tangent. This is definitely something I like to do, and people who like my stuff always encourage me to do it. I saw George St. Pierre 3 or 4 days ago. I'm working on another cool thing. It doesn't come out till like February of next year, but it's a big project and it's kind of top secret, but we'll probably talk about it in the fall. And it's really cool. And I had George, that was sitting down with George for part of this project. And he was talking about Nick Diaz and about when he fought Nick Diaz. And he was like, when you look at Nick versus Paul Daly, there's a million different ways that Nick will try to fatigue you and try to, be more alive than you during moments of fatigue. Some of them are 5 rounds, 4 or 3 rounds, long and slow. And like with Paul Daly blew himself out, and then Nick pushed him and pushed him and pushed him because that was the goal. He likes chaos. Nick Diaz, the Diaz brothers live in chaos. So, and if you do not, they are more comfortable there. But within that, to find the serenity and the calm and the peace and the ability to manage your own emotions in the chaos of a fight or business or life or your relationship or whatever, being able to identify your own chaotic nature and tame it is an incredibly powerful thing. It's an incredibly powerful thing and an incredibly important thing. I'll move on to some other ones of these, but I got a personal story. I used to work at a place called Fight Network, maybe I think until around 2017. So it's been like 7 years now. And they laid off everybody all at one time. And that was chaos for me, but there was nothing but opportunities because I'd worked hard. I met a lot of people and some people offered me things. It was very inspiring. It was very moving. But part of the time before that, there was part of the reason that they had laid people off is they didn't understand the change in tech, right? This applies to everybody. We need to understand that the world is changing and that we have to be able to we don't have to overdo it, but we have to gently anticipate change if we're going to stay wherever we are. And if that means where we are in business or where we are in our health or fitness or like your projects or whatever, or as an artist, whatever it is, you don't have to. Nobody has to do anything. It's a really good idea if you can learn to stay a little on the edge of how things are changing. I'm not heavy into AI, but I'm pretty aware. I'm learning to be aware of it. I get, email things, and I've signed up for newsletters that keep me up to understanding how it's changing and then slowly incorporate things. We have to do that. Fight Network at the time when I was there, they weren't understanding that. We were going to a YouTube and social world and they were a digital channel. And because of that, I was actually having a lot of conflict with 1 or 2 executives. I could look and go, oh my God, this is going to be the end of this company and many companies like this unless we understand change. And I was not able to stay serene and calm and analytical enough to actually be able to get through to them. I was just more in a panic, like, hey, we're in trouble. And that probably sped the change rather than slowed it. So we have to learn these things, and we have to learn. And one of those things we need that it is valuable to learn is in chaos and in bedlam and in a frenzied work environment and in a very busy, you got 4 kids running around, whatever your thing is, how can you be calm in there? How can you learn to be calm? How can you learn not to panic? How can you learn to manage yourself? Because if you can do those things, it's like a superpower. It's an incredible superpower. And so sometimes that's all the opportunity that is there, is the opportunity to train that ability to stay relaxed and calm. Um, so I don't know if I'm just not seeing the comments or there aren't any, because across all platforms there's 200 people hanging with me, which is cool. It's cool hanging with you guys. But I don't see any comments, so maybe they're not coming through, or I screwed up something on StreamYard. So please forgive me. If I see them, I'll do them. If not, my friend Ant Evans, who's helping me kind of relaunch my YouTube, he's a very smart guy. He's got a YouTube channel, Ant Evans, check it out. He'll help me sort this for next time. All right, let's keep going. So Art of War, quotes from the Art of War, think them out loud, figure out how they could apply to our life. So to me, this is a very inspiring kind of one. This is like a flavored water, like a bubbly flavored water. It's kind of grapefruity. I don't really like it. Just in case you're wondering. Great results can be achieved with small forces. Okay. And that's a real, to me, that's inspiring. It means you can do a lot by yourself. You can do a lot with just your little crew, or the people around you. I'm just asking Ant, is it up? Because I'm so completely like flying by the seat of my pants. Other than the talking part, this part's easy. This part's fun. And thanks again for hanging with me. Great results can be achieved with small forces. Okay, so let's go right into here. We understand, there are many people that are small, small gyms. Actually, Sugar Sean has kind of a smaller gym, smaller scenario. And Demetrius Johnson trains with Matt Hume, who's a genius, and a couple of training partners. So in the realm of martial arts, of course, with a very small team, we can learn a lot, but in life, I think this is a big one. And so I've been able to kind of, the last 7 years, I was talking about how the last time kind of I had like a job where like I had a boss and sort of a hierarchy of executives and all these things. Like I've been able to build kind of a really pretty good business, considering I just get to hang out and do this stuff I love, and I'm very thankful, and I do not take it for granted. But I like to encourage other people to do that, because it is doable, right? It's super doable. Anybody can start, some social things, some online things. You can, if you love candles, you can create and buy and sell candles on Etsy. If you like videos, you can make videos on YouTube. These things are real, and it is shocking how doable it all is. Now, the key to a lot of these things is how can you build a business or build something that you love, build something of your own, without, and be able to do it without large risk. Although risk is okay, we understand that risk is okay, and sometimes it's smart. But in the early days, you'd be like, well, I don't have anything. It's like, if you have this. Yeah, my daughter puts stickers on it. This was a strawberry. And she'll get the sticker at Walmart, and she'll be like, put it on daddy's phone. It's like, oh God, it's the cutest thing in the world. But you can start your business, your buying and selling business, your flipping something business, your renovation, your Etsy store, whatever it is, your eBay business, your social media business, your YouTube business. You can start it yourself, literally, if you have this. You're a small force by yourself. The reason that's such a good thing is if you love something enough that it is actually more fun than Netflix or video games, then do that thing, right? And the fun of it is slowly learning. In my case, I'm trying to relearn YouTube. I have my friend Ant helping me, but in general, I gotta relearn YouTube. I got 800,000 followers on small video social, and that's been a great part of my business. This is a different part, but the learning of it actually is fun. Right. And if the learning of something is fun, you buy and sell something or whatever it is, the developing of the thing is fun. The learning how to make a Facebook page dedicated to it, learning how to optimize different things, learning how to photograph the thing. You got to find something you're really into. Then you can do all these things. Literally today, I know lots of people, and I mean by lots, I mean like 30 that make hundreds of thousands of dollars in social media, some of which there's a guy, King Batch. I worked with him at, and it's spelled BACH, I believe. He's a comedian, King back. I forget how he says it, but this is him. So he's got like 25 million. And he was working on Karate Combat with me. And I was like, oh, that's a lot of stuff. And I was looking at what he does, and I said, how big is your team? And he's like, I got one guy that shoots stuff. And like when you have that many people and that many people who love your stuff, there's a lot of money. I heard that Keith Lee makes $800,000 a month. Keith Lee is somebody who talks about, now we're not all going to make $800,000 a month. Nobody should promise you that, although it is certainly possible. Keith Lee did it. He's just a regular guy and just did stuff he liked. But all this can be done. And Keith probably has a team of 6 or 8 or 9 or something now. But you can do I didn't have anybody working for me until about a year ago, in the last year. And then I hired somebody on Fiverr to do some editing. And I had 700,000 or 800,000 followers and made 40 videos a month. And I did it all myself. The reason that's amazing, now eventually you're exhausted and you're like, you can't do it anymore. And even though you love it, it's killing you. So then you hire somebody if you can. But the longer you can do that on your own, the less risk. You're not, you're making more money in the long run, although in the later, you'll probably make more if you have other people do some work for you so you can concentrate on the important stuff that's unique to you. But at the beginning, you just do it and you learn about it and you keep rolling. And what's great about that is the way you start a business like this one, or, whatever, some of the ones we've named that are digital related, is you just, you get a part-time job. If, you got to eat, and you make your expenses as low as humanly possible. You sell your big truck or whatever stuff you got, because this is your dream. This is what you want to do. And then you fucking start doing it. And it costs you nothing. It costs nothing to create media. It costs nothing to post. I don't know if it costs anything to post things on eBay, whatever it is. It costs you nothing. You're a very small force, and great results can be achieved with small forces. It's very real. I see it now that I travel in these circles where people are, Big Mike is a YouTuber. He works with Logan Paul, and I work with him on Karate Combat as well. And when you see what he has built, it's incredible. Now he has a team he has a shooter and an editor now, but still, it's a very small force. Even when I say, oh, so-and-so has, I worked with, again, Karate Combat. Karate Combat has a lot of fascinating people around. There's a woman named Kinsey. Kinsey has 3 million followers on TikTok and Instagram, and I don't know, maybe 1 million on YouTube. A lot of people follow her. She's beautiful and smart and cool. And she had a team of like 4 or something. That's still a really small force. When you think about the amount of work and business that's being done, you can build this. Everybody can. And at the beginning, it's just you. But if you find something you're really excited about, and you really are driven to do it, and you love doing it, you can absolutely do it. And Sun Tzu says great results can be achieved with small forces, and that is 100% true. Okay, good thing I did put my contacts in, because this is long. Plan for what is difficult while it is easy. So I just cut and pasted this. So, most of these I haven't thought much about. Plan for what is difficult while it is easy. Do what is great while it is small. So plan for what is difficult while it is easy is a really fascinating idea. Really fascinating idea. Because, so I've got somebody's calling me and I'm not answering. So I'll give you a personal story as it relates to me that definitely relates to this. So I do this, right? And I analyze martial arts and I talk about it, and then I take the things that I learn and I share them, and it's crazy that that's life. And like I said, I will never take it for granted. I'll always be very grateful. And my wife is in musical theater, so she is a performer. She sings and dances and acts in big productions. And we have she has a show in Montreal that begins in, let's say, October 1st. I'm moving to Montreal. My wife and myself and my daughter will move to Montreal from October 1st till, say, December 1st, so 8 weeks. The first 4 of those weeks will be, she will be rehearsing, and in rehearsal, they're 9 and 10 hour days. My daughter will be plucked from her preschool, and I will be a full-time dad for the month of October. Now, that will be difficult. Especially because I run a business. Now, in that time, I may also have to fly I think I got to go to Abu Dhabi or or Singapore or something for karate combat. So her parents will come and help. And I probably have at least one other. I do about 2 trips a month on average. Just the odd month there's 3. I was commentating a show in Paris once a month for like 2 years. So that was every month in addition to the 2 or 3. I don't do that one anymore. Um, but uh, but so that will be difficult because I run a business and I love it, and you don't want to fall behind on things. So what I'm going to do, while it is quote easy, and we're here, is for the months of July, August, and September, I'm going to make like try to get 30 to 50 of my videos ahead. So I'm going to do a crazy amount. My videos where I show what's happening, or I do a Bruce Lee video every week with the Bruce Lee family. So I'll maybe try to get an extra 5 of those, so I have 5 weeks worth of Bruce Lee videos built, and maybe 30 more, so I can show some poetic or inspiring or whatever beautiful, interesting martial arts video that I've made and put my voice on. I'll try to have 40 or 50. While it is easy, now it's not easy, but while before things get crazy, I'll get this all ready. So when I move and I'm a 24-hour-a-day dad, my daughter will sleep 2 hours nap a day. I'll do my posts then. I'll book my flights or whatever other things, and then at an hour in the morning, and I'll move to a 4-hour workday and a 24-hour dad, and that's what I'll have to do, and that's what we'll do. And it'll be great. But I'll plan for when it is what is difficult now while it's easy, and I'll prepare for what is difficult now while it's easy. Do what is great while it is small. So I think that might tie back slightly to this. I'm going to think it out loud here, but do what we just discussed. That great results can be achieved with small forces. Do what is great while it is small. Do what is great while it is small. So let's say you do grow a business. Let's say you do, buy real estate, whatever you are. If we're lucky enough to do some of these things, then great, but they're challenging too. You are going to build a home renovation business. Start it good, start it with special and unique, and do the great things while you can, because when it gets bigger, it's going to be really hard to manage. You're going to have a lot more work to do. You're going to have a lot of unknowns, a lot of variables. And though while it's small is when you make it strong, and you build a scaffolding that you can build the whole thing on, whether that's business or art, or you start in a rock band or whatever you do. While in the early days, the better you can make it before things get crazy, before things get chaotic, although there'll be opportunity when they do. The more you can do at the beginning while things are small, the stronger of a foundation you can build, the better, right? This is fun, by the way. I'm trying to think of how I can see the comments, but I cannot. So, what are we going to do? We'll figure that out. Let's keep going. Actually, let me think if I've got anything interesting to tell you about karate combat. A lot of people watch karate combat's turned into a pretty cool thing, right? I started working on it in, I think, 2019, and we were shooting a lot of them, multiple events we would shoot at one time in a soundstage in Europe. The early ones, if you watch, a lot more people watch karate combat now than did, 4 months ago, and a lot more than a year and a half before that. But if you watch some of the early ones, you could tell they were kind of on a set. That live audience thing has only been in the last couple of years, but man, a lot of people reach out to me about fighting on it, having their fighters on it. I have a famous UFC friend whose son is a high level fighter. He wants him on karate combat. I mean, it's constant that people are reaching out to me and asking me about it, and it's really fun. It's really, really fun. It's a really different is cool. I know we're talking a lot about creating businesses and being your own boss and entrepreneur, because I love all that kind of stuff, and it's really changed my life for the better in thousands of ways. But something different is really powerful, right? I have 1 or 2 MMA shows that I call, and I like that they're different. They have a unique flavor. So Levels Fight League is in Amsterdam, LFL, and it's got this very Dutch flavor. It's got this very unique kind of tone and flavor and look and feel and stuff, and it feels special. To me, I really like it. I like the people a lot too. Um, and I do bits and pieces for Bellator and PFL sometimes on occasion and stuff. But I get super jazzed about different now. Like as somebody who if you, I was really, I'm not really into sodas or flavored water or whatever, but if you are, you like the ones that are different, unique, and rare, not the same old thing. People who are really into soda, they might drink a Coke, but that's not their thing. Their thing is the unique. People who are really into wine, they don't get they like wine from different regions and different scents and different textures and different histories and stuff. So these crazy craft beer people, they'll drive all over the place to get some pumpkin flavored, uh, IPA from somewhere in the southern United States, right? They'll do that, and which is cool, right? That's how I am about fighting. I love different. I love unique. I love like the historic things. I like the different things, and karate combat is very different. All the best parts about fighting are there, but the environment's different. The fighting surface is different. The times, the rule set, the language, it's all different. It's really cool. It's really cool. Wow, there's a lot of people hanging out. That's really, really nice, and I'm very grateful. I don't know where they're all from, but because I have YouTube, but also I'm on Twitter right now too, I think. But so, hey, let's keep looking at this. We're looking at quotes from The Art of War, and then we're seeing how they might apply to our life and anything that we do. Okay, it is easy to love your friend, but sometimes the hardest lesson to learn is to love your enemy. So that sounds sort of philosophical and deep, but that's a really good one. It's I'm down. I'm down with that because think about there's 1,000 reasons that makes a lot of sense, but among the biggest is um, a type of philosophy that's really popular right now is Stoic philosophy. Ryan, I got one here that he sent me. Well, it's around here somewhere. I got a couple books. Ryan Holiday. Ryan Holiday has written a lot of books and modern interpretations of Stoicism, and he sent me the first copy of the newest one. And I'll show it next time I'm doing a live. Because I'm grateful that he sent it to me. But a lot of sort of Stoicism, there are some very root things, and among them, one of his books, Ryan's books, is called "The Obstacle Is the Way," meaning the impediment to action is action. Right? The thing that's stopping you is the thing that actually now we can see it, and now we can move towards it. We can embrace it, and we can overcome it. Move towards the challenge, right? And I've thought a lot about things lately since I had a child, and how life, a lot of big things I've thought about, and one of them is that if anything in my life was different. So what is your child? You're watching this, you're someone's child. You may have children, but you are definitely a child. Everyone here has a connection to this conversation. To be a human being is to be literally created when we all know how sex works, I think, but essentially two pieces, tiny microscopic pieces of genetic material end up together in within the human body of a female, right? I don't mean to be a doctor about it, but we could talk about all the fun parts about it, and there's a lot of fun parts about it, but that's the real part. That's the you. That's where you came from. Two pieces of genetic material, and there were trillions of other pieces of genetic material that is not you, that the one that is you had to compete with. And if your parent, or in my case, thinking about my daughter, if I had paused on the stair, whatever day that was, however that moment of conception, if I'd have done anything different in my life, that my daughter doesn't exist. Some other kid might exist, or twins, or but she doesn't exist if anything changes in my life. So what that means is every obstacle, every challenge, every hard thing, every brutal thing, every terrible thing that happens to you, happened ever to your parents, had to happen, or else there's no you, right? So just that route, suddenly nothing is bad in a weird kind of way, even the worst things, if they resulted in a human being and every piece of life that they got, that's a great thing. So even the enemies and I know that was a tangent. I like to go off on tangents, but the uh, the enemy that you had, or the obstacle that you had, or the terrible boss, or the guy who stole your girlfriend, whatever it was, at the very least, you can love and appreciate them because of what you learned from them, how they made you stronger. You are who you are today because of experiencing the enemy. So learning to love your enemy is sort of it to me. This is learning to appreciate whoever did you wrong helped you. They taught you something. Um, there, Conan the Barbarian, by the time he's about to cut the guy's head off, he's like, I am your father. I am your father. There's 1,000 stories of that. But he's like, I made you. The powerful body that you have was your thirst for vengeance for me, for doing the horrible things I did. That's what created you. And in many cases, your enemy, you need to appreciate them, because whatever you have, whoever you are, whatever you've learned, whatever is happening in your life that's good, some of that could include the learning of overcoming those obstacles. So you need to love your past, you need to love the challenge, you need to love the worry, you need to love failure. That was something we talked about early. I'll make sure I come back to this, but the fear of failure stops a lot of people from living the life that they could live. Um, it and failure is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Failure is really important. Um, there was I just recorded an Ask Robin Black episode. I'm going to put it up on my YouTube channel on Tuesday, and in it, oh look, I do have some comments snuck through. Thank you for your unique advice. Oh, you're very welcome. Oh, that's from Facebook. Thanks, Denise. These questions came from Facebook, so whatever's coming in YouTube, I'm not seeing it, but we'll work that out. Yeah, the fear of failure stops a lot of people, right? And failure. Oh yeah, I'm saying on my one of my Ask Robin Blacks, somebody asked, "Hey, fall down 7 times, get up 8. The math doesn't work on that." And I'm like, you're right. The math, if you fall down 7 times, you only have to get up 7 times, right? So the math doesn't work. But the point of it, of course, and they knew this, they were just having fun. The point of it is that you have to fail, right? Like you're never going to, we've talked about starting something and creating your own thing and building your own business, or like doing the thing you've always dreamed about. You're going to fail at it a bunch of times. So you have to really learn to love failure, really learn to like embrace it as part of the process. A lot of people, it's something I'm really think about a lot with my daughter. If you ask a 10-year-old kid, some of them will say, I want to be a MVP at a Super Bowl. It's like, okay, do you love football? Like, do you love playing football? Do you love practicing football? Because you're not going to do the destination is not the key thing. The process is the thing. Everything is process. Everything is process. The process of learning, the process of improving, a lifelong search for mastery and improvement. All of that involves failure. The only way you get good at something is you start out bad at it. Everyone starts at white belt in everything, right? Unless there's some parallel comparison. If you happen to be a black belt in judo, they might give you a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, if not immediately, sometimes pretty quickly, because they're, but in general, in everything, everyone starts at white belt. If you've always dreamed of doing a podcast, of course, your first 10 are terrible. That's not failure. That's just part of the process. And you learn to love your enemy. You learn to love failure. You learn to love setbacks. You learn to love challenges. It's really important. It's a real part of living a great life is making that adjustment and learning that. This is fun. This is super fun. And I was like, I think the reason we put the Art of War, my friend Ant was talking to me about doing lives, and then he hooked me up with this guy, Oven, who makes thumbnails. And he was like, well, you need to put something on the thumbnail. So what about the Art of War? But then after I'd said, so this is sometimes how the artistic process works in anything, something small artistic, like sitting and chatting, or something large and complex, like writing a song. The artistic process happens however it happens. In this case, the thumbnail existed, and I was like, Art of War, it'd be really fun. What if I just took some of the quotes and we looked at them? And now this is something I'm going to do, like, every 5 or 6 or 8 lives. I'm going to take maybe it'll be Art of War, maybe it'll be some other books, maybe it'll be some Stoicism. We're going to look at some of these things because this is really fun, and I hope people are enjoying it. Um, let's keep going. Okay, this is a classic, and we this one definitely applies to a lot of martial arts. Like when Conor McGregor had that run where he could do no wrong, he was kind of living this. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Right? It's a really interesting one. It's a really, how can you win before you go? And of course, there's a lot of metaphor in this. Excuse me. There's a lot of metaphor in this, and there is a high psychological and emotional component to this, because the winning has to happen in your mind, and the winning also isn't just confidence; it's also real, right? So on my YouTube channel, there's I did a lot, and I'm going to do it again now that I'm really kind of a little more focused and organized. I did probably 100 between Fight Network and then my own platforms and stuff. My friend David Mullins. David Mullins is a sport psychology consultant, or he's a mental coach, right? He's a performance coach. I mentioned Connor. He actually did work with Connor in the early days. Does a lot with the SBG guys. He does a lot of martial arts, but other things. There have been even times where, as a performer, I asked for his advice and insight and stuff. And we talked about this kind of thing a lot on the mentality of combat, which is on my YouTube channel. I'm going to try to get that up going again in the coming weeks and months. Weeks. Let's not push it too far back. We would talk about this. Confidence has to be rooted in reality, and the best way to root confidence in reality is root your confidence in preparation. And I remember I had 9 very low level pro fights in my process as a martial artist, and as learning about martial arts, and the experience of it was terrifying, but also awesome, and also terrifying, and also terrible, and also amazing fighting. When I would be running, I remember running wind sprints in the rain in the wintertime. And I remember thinking, my opponent's not doing this, right? My opponent isn't doing this. That's a type of confidence that's kind of starting to build in there. And if you are really training, and you're recording your training, and you're making notes, and you're analyzing your work, and you're watching yourself, and you're studying your own behavior, and you're looking for improvement, and you're doing the practice, and you're getting the sleep, and you're doing all of these things when you go to fight, that's real confidence. The confidence comes from confidence in the process. Fake confidence is just like, I'm going to kill this guy, man. He's nothing like me. This guy doesn't know what he's dealing with. That's not anything. That's not anything, because you're going to be afraid or tentative or feel odd as you feel the neurotransmitters and all the things in your body the day of the fight. And you have to be the one of the greatest things you can do when you walk to the cage is think back to the work you did, right? That's one of the great secrets, is you think back to the work you did. So your victorious warriors win first, then go to war. By the time you're walking to war, or walking to the cage or the ring or whatever, you're literally sitting there and in your mind thinking of the late sessions and the hard ones, and how hard you pushed yourself and how hard you worked. And that's where the real confidence comes from, right? So this is not like I believe, I'm gonna like tell myself things over and over and over again. I forget what the word is where you repeat the same thing all the time. Affirmations. So there's some value in that, I'm sure, but just telling I'm unbeatable, I'm unbreakable, this guy can't handle me, I'm gonna be in, that's not anything, right? That's what the work, being confident in the work, that's how you win first, and then you go to war. And it's the same thing, like, you go to a job interview or like a business meeting or something. The preparation is what gets you there. Now, you don't want to be rehearsing what you're going to say. That's not preparation. That's something different. And that can backfire. You just want to have it ready. You just want to know that you learned everything there was about the company or the person or the whatever. You figured out what their objectives were and how you could fulfill them. Whatever the thing was, you did the work, and then you go in and you do the thing. Um, I talk about a lot about the different shows that I work. I think Jorge Masvidal's got a Game Bred MMA coming up soon. Game Bred bare knuckle MMA. It's bare knuckle fighting, bare knuckle MMA. It's really fucking fun. And I like to talk about karate combat because it's so fascinating and people are really interested in it. People often ask me, and even the people I work with were very kind to me. Uh, they're always surprised at the things I'll say after a fight or between rounds or whatever my role is. And they're like, how do you come up with that stuff? Which is really kind. Often when George, GSP, is there, he will compliment it during the show. And Big Mike, too, he always is like, wow, I love that. How does that guy come up with those things? And when I'm doing my analysis, a lot of people mention that it's different than other people. And they ask, sometimes people will say, well, how do you come up with that kind of stuff? And actually, my process is completely different. I don't watch other people commentate anymore at all, as little as possible. Joe Rogan is so fun and great, and so it's you can get pretty pumped. So I only watch like 3 UFCs a year probably these days because I have so much of my own stuff to do that if I watched 3 UFCs a month for 5 hours each, I'd never see my family. Like I got to commentate the shows I'm lucky enough to work on and then make thousands of videos. I just can't watch them. Like I just can't do it. But I'll listen to Joe, and the odd other friend, I'll listen a little bit, but for the most part, I don't listen. And then I don't prepare in the typical way. I don't make the notes about what they said. I don't care and I don't mean that it as blunt as it sounds, but what a fighter will tell me in the day before. So after the weigh-in, sometimes they'll sit down and do fighter interviews. If I have a broadcast partner, I'd prefer they do those. I'll sit in or whatever. If they need me, if something else I can contribute or shoot or host or whatever, happy to be there. I'm not trying to not work. But I don't need their thoughts because I'm not going to be talking about that because they don't even know how they feel, right? A fighter doesn't know how they feel. They think they do, but they don't. And how they feel right this second talking to me, it'll be different. 36 times it'll be different between now and then. So they may not tell me the truth. I remember, there are fighters, lots of them, that have an injured foot. And so they say they're injured left foot and they'll say, well, my right hand is a little off. They just lying is an important and valuable deception for a fighter is a very important and valuable thing. It's the least valuable thing a fighter can do is to the media or to in an environment is just tell the truth, unless they tell it eloquently or interestingly or it has some value to them to promote a fight or something. For the most part, being deceptive to my friends who are in journalists is an important way to be a fighter. So I don't need any of that because I know it isn't sort of the truth anyways. And then also my preparation is much so I studied how freestyle rap works and jazz improvisation and then studied those mechanics. They don't do it the same way. Punch happens, a big right hand. Oh my God, it's all over. Wow. New contender and the whatever. That is sort of just sort of a, this thing happens and I say this thing. Or sometimes I say huge right hand. Sometimes I say huge, big right hand. Sometimes I say, wow, right on the button, whatever. I got 7 or 8 things and the thing happens. I say everything. The mechanics of freestyle rap is nothing like that, or improvising music. It is to fill your head with as many possibilities as possible, and then don't consciously think about any of them. Just allow them to come out. And it takes years of preparation, but that's how we do it now. I'll read an obscene amount about how the human brain works during combat, or I'll read a wild amount about how liquid flows or thousands of different things, and then just let them happen. And when there's a moment on karate combat and they're going to come to me after, I'm not sitting there thinking what I'm going to say. Sometimes I got a few concepts floating around in there, but it is truly improv, and true improv is a different process. But so the way I win first and then go and try to do my job as best I can is just through intense amounts of completely different preparation than anybody else who does, from as far as I know, than anyone else who does the job. I just don't do it like them, and that allows me to think differently and speak differently. It's really fun. I really love it. I'm super grateful. It's so wild. Um, oh, look, we got another comment. The opposite was how honest Tyson was. Part of why he was such a comment. So yeah, so force. So the opposite of how honest Tyson was. Yeah, when I was talking about, how the best thing, it's really valuable for a fighter to mislead, right? But if everyone's misleading, the opposite is powerful. The opposite is powerful often, right? The opposite is very, very powerful. If everybody is doing one thing, you can also do that thing, and you and the 9,000 people doing that will all share the market or share the audience or share the whatever. If you did the opposite, well, again, I don't go up and talk about Alex Pereira because, one, I don't know as much about him as I used to because I'm not on top of that. But there's 1,000 people talking about him, or 10,000, or Jake Paul or whatever. That'll come up. People ask, and I'll have some kind of answer or thought, and sometimes it's fun or interesting or I like it. But for the most part, everything we're hanging out today is not anything like how people talk about people who cover martial arts, because it's opposite, but it's good. It's what I prefer, right? You should do what you love. You should always try to. It's going to be really hard, whatever you do. Whatever you're working on, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to be really hard. So it might as well be something fun because you work harder at fun things, right? Let's move on. This is a good one. There is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare, right? Now, of course, let's take this just literally. Nations, like Sun Tzu wrote this as military strategy. If a country or like an army or whatever goes to war for too long, never having it go longer is never better, right? There's no way to benefit from just carrying it on too long. And in human history, a lot of the falls of the greatest civilizations, among their things that always seem to keep happening, is they end up fighting wars that don't make any sense, that they just are still fighting and they don't even know why, and they don't know how to get out of them. And that happens today. But then as it applies to everything else, like, so I've found that being able to be your own boss, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's the greatest thing. The freedom of it and the joy of it. It's hard. Sometimes it's lonely, but the joy of it is great. If you also don't end up like having you have many relationships and many partnerships, and it's really, really fun. They're all fresh, right? But everyone kind of knows somebody, and there's like people in, say, the fight business who have a lot of enemies, right? They're always fighting. They're always like battling with somebody. They're always like in a conflict, right? You see it on Twitter, you see it on Facebook, and you see it out in any business. There's somebody out there who's always fighting with people. No one ever benefits from that. Think of every time, and for the most part, having some kind of enemy, that is unnecessary enemy or enemies in your life, at the very least, is stealing your attention. Your attention, all of our attention is really the way through we interface with the world around us. Right now I'm paying attention to this, and it's really cool. There'll be a moment where like I'll slide over here, and this, now my attention is changed, but I get a little tasty stuff. I'm not sure I like that. But our attention is everything. We really, and this is one of the great hazards of today. We look back in history, saber-toothed tigers was once a hazard of humans or pre-humans. That was a bad one. We don't have saber-toothed tigers hunting us today, right? It's a lot more subtle, the things that are out there, the hazards in our lives. you know, TV trying to sell you Doritos is a hazard, right? Like your Doritos are tasty, but they're not good for you. And if you're watching the news, it's stealing your attention and it's getting you all worked up about something they think they want you to be paying attention to, not the 900 other things and thousands of other things. I call the news the bad news, right? Because like the news, there's all kinds of news. There's all kinds of thousands and millions of things happening in the world right now, but they're going to show you the worst, right? Now, while you're watching that, there's going to be a commercial that's going to tell you, do you have restless leg syndrome? You're like, yeah, I think I might. Now you're going to take that drug, right? So these are the hazards of today. But one of the biggest is that your attention is being stolen. And if you mindfully and willfully and are intentional with your attention, you say, I want to spend the next 35 minutes on Facebook looking at my old friends and sending messages. I can knock yourself out. Great. You were intentional with it. This is a tool there and you did it. You're like, I'm going to go on YouTube and see what's there. I'm watching Rob Black talking about being intentional. Great. There you did it. But if you just didn't have a plan for the next hour and the next thing you knew, you were doing this, that is not intentional. That happened. That was stolen from you, right? And that's one of the great hazards of today. And to be intentional with your time. If you have a family, if you have parents that you like to spend time with, or a wife or a husband or children, and something steals that attention from you, that's a really big thing. Your life might not be as long. I hope everybody lives for a long time, but our lives might not be as long as we think. Our time is huge. Look, I got another comment. Truth in real relationships. Well, I should be more on top of these because I'll know the application, but thank you, my friend. This is one people know a lot. And actually the next two are related. I'm going to make this bigger so I can read it. Boop. To win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. Actually, that connects back to what we did just talk about. Why? Because among other reasons, if you're busy fighting, it's stealing your time. It's stealing your attention. You're engaged in something other than, if you're mad at somebody, now you got to type a thing. We've all done it. I'm sure most humans have had that experience because it's social media and these other modern hazards are very, very difficult to understand. And in the first some years of them, sometimes you find yourself, freaking out and get mad at somebody, or you're mad at Jake Paul or whatever, like that, something stole your attention, right? So you don't benefit from engaging in fighting and wars and scuffles and battles, right? So if you can subdue the enemy without fighting, that is the acme of skill. Now, of course, that we can understand how that applies in martial arts. If I can take you down and submit you, now, of course, that is fighting. We know that that's fighting, but the sort of the metaphor is, instead of punching, kicking, swords, guns, axes, whatever, I was able to just put you to sleep without doing anything. And of course, this goes a step further. If I could speak to you and calm you in such a way, nobody got hurt, right? Nothing bad happened. There was the dangers of war, the dangers of battle, and that applies to how you deal with the people at work too, how you deal with the people that you interact with at work. If you have to do battle with them all the time, stealing attention from your life, stealing attention from your family and your hobbies and your art and whatever you love to do, it's also giving you stress. You don't need that. So we can find a way to be able to, through strategy, kindness, subtlety, whatever, we don't have to fight. And this is the same. The greatest victory is that, and this actually, I've noticed, the one thing, many of the things in Art of War are repeated a lot. And this concept of winning without fighting is probably one of the things repeated the most. I've shown you two examples here. And this, of course, somewhat connects. Like, never mind fighting. You certainly don't want to fight long. And here we don't. Isn't it great if we don't fight at all? And the best way to win is without fighting. And in fact, there's a Bruce Lee movie, I think it's Enter the Dragon. And he's like, the guy says, tell me about your style. And he says, I call my style the art of fighting without fighting. And the guy, if you've seen Enter the Dragon, you know this, and the guy's like, well, show me some. And Bruce goes, right here. We don't have enough room. And he says, that island. Let's get in a boat and go to that island. And the guy gets in the boat, and then he just sends the boat off, and it's like fighting without fighting, right? But that metaphor works in all kinds of things. Are there ways we don't have to engage in the drama and the stress and the turmoil of conflict in ways that the outcome will be good for you? This came up. It's going to be in my Ask Robin Black on Monday, but I'm going to also talk about it here. I'll speak about it differently, but I don't know if people saw, but at Karate Combat, there was a fight, and it was very close. And then after the one guy like flipped him off or pointed at his crotch or whatever, and then a cornerman went crazy and then kind of tried to attack people, and then security came in. Ultimately, President Awesome choked him out. I don't know if people saw that. Afterwards, and Awesome was like, I understand it's the emotion business, and that's okay, and I don't disagree. That's by all means invite him back, and let's all grow from it. But the guy went on, and I'm not judging him, but the coach did go on the internet, and he said, hey, listen, this guy really disrespected me, and I believe in having the back of all my people, and when somebody disrespects me, this is what's going to happen. I wouldn't change anything. And to me, my point, and I would say this to him kindly and with patience and just as a conversation, but if when something happens, somebody quote disrespects you or whatever the deal is, if you actually are saying that I actually could not do anything different, I have to lose control in such a way that bad consequences can happen for me or my team or the fighter or the show or other people or whatever, that I don't have the ability. That guy owns you. That guy owns you. That's a weakness. Like if there's anyone, and it's certainly happened to me in my life, and it'll happen again. I hope not often. I hope not very powerfully. It's happened to all of us, but sometimes we can be provoked and behave irrationally. But we have to work on that. We cannot control the world around us. We cannot control other people. There's a lot we can't control. What we do have influence is how we react to these things and how we interpret these things. And so when somebody does something, if the only possible reaction is I'll just behave irrationally, well, that I could improve that. I could change that. Boss Rutan would say, the reason to stay calm and not attack is so that later, and he would say this somewhat comedically, I think, but he'd be so that later you can decide what sort of justice you want in a future time of your choosing. And I'd be like, whoa, and Boss doesn't hurt people. It's not he's good. He's a good man. But he thinks like John Wick. Like he's like, this thing happens. Just because I'm calm doesn't mean you're not going to get yours. I remember we were all sitting around, and again, this is somewhat just how a lifelong martial arts, and combat veteran thinks. But we were all standing around when Kane shot at the person who harmed his child, and I was like, I'd do the same thing. And somebody else was like, yeah, I did the same thing. Boss is like, not me. He's like, if something happened to him, it'd be 3 years later, and I'd be on TV like during the time it happened. And he means it, but whether the reason that you're staying calm when somebody does something to you is so that you can choose something to do that you think you'd like to do later, or because you don't want to engage in battle and once calm you would prefer not to. Whatever the reason is, you get to then later choose by being able to manage your own emotions and being able to manage how you respond to things. If all I got to do to get you to act crazy and possibly harm yourself, put yourself in jeopardy, have negative consequences to your life is go like this to you, then that's not good for you, right? So I would talk to him about that, but there's something I mentioned earlier today, something Conor McGregor's name came up. And when there's one here that isn't in here that I was thinking about earlier today, and it is like, if your enemy is of choleric temper, provoke him, and if you can provoke him, there's a lot of references to being able to provoke emotion in someone so that they behave in ways harmful to themselves. And actually, Khabib, when Khabib beat Connor, Connor had provoked Khabib to the point that he wanted Khabib to be emotional and behave in ways that would be negative to Khabib, and he succeeded. But he still lost the fight. But he succeeded when Khabib then later jumped over the cage and attacked Dylan Dennis. Um, uh, that was emotion. That was a loss of emotion. Now, there were negative consequences there, but fortunately for Khabib, not as negative because Khabib was the one being provoked, and Khabib managed his emotion through the whole thing in such a way that he was victorious and had a great fight, and was really a great mental control. But then at the end, he loses it. Now, had he injured somebody or himself, had he been suspended, his friends were suspended, like there were negative consequences to him emotionally snapping, which was what Connor wanted. He just didn't get it when he wanted. And it wasn't so bad. The consequences for Khabib were not so negative, and so I'm sure he's fine with, hey, that guy got what he deserved, and so everyone, it's okay. But some bad things could have happened if he injured a woman, or something. Something bad could have happened when he lost control there, which he did lose because Connor provoked the crap out of him, right? So it's a fascinating one to think about, because Connor got what he wanted, just not when he wanted and not in the way he wanted. And it wasn't so bad for Khabib in the end anyway. So what else we got? Oh, wow, this one's long. Blow it up. Engage people with what they expect. It is what they are able to discern and confirms their projections. It settles them into predictable patterns of response, occupying their minds while you wait for, wow, it's got cut off. So while you wait for something. But yeah, obviously we know where that's going, right? Like if you appear to have predictable patterns, so I don't know. If you appear to have predictable patterns that sort of are in line with what somebody expects of you, and then you are prepared to be different. So I'll give you a martial arts example I love. So I'm a big Josh Barnett fan. I mentioned earlier in the show I'm working on a top secret project. It's like 6 months we've been working on it. It'll come out next year. And we really want to have Josh Barnett in it, and we do, which is great. Always been a fan of Josh as a fighter, martial artist, and just a person. He's a fascinating guy. And I remember when he was fighting, it was in Affliction. We're going to do the quick search while I'm talking about it. So it was in Affliction. I think it might have been, I don't know, Josh Barnett Tapology. You got to look at some of these and you're like, oh man, these guys have been fighting forever, which is so cool. Josh Barnett, also the War Master, like how cool of a name is that? So you go way back, Affliction, Pedro Hizo. He was fighting Pedro Hizo. And so Josh, you watch it, and it's when he drops him. I can't remember if it was a full knockout or he hit him on the ground or he ended up on top of him. But I remember distinctly he throws a 1-2 and then another 1-2. Both of them miss. And both of them are, when you watch it, very shallow. He's throwing it not very deep. And then the last one, deep. And that's also how Nate Diaz cracked Leon Edwards. Nate Diaz sets that up for rounds sometimes. Basically trains you to feel safe in a particular range where you are unsafe. And he does it on purpose. Josh did it to Pedro Hizo. Shallow, deep. And Pedro Hizo was like, okay, I'm fine. Oh, right. And that's a very, acute example. There are much more subtle ones and sophisticated ones. We got some other questions. Steve, well said. Viva Boss Rutan. Boss is a genius. He's brilliant. Let's keep going. Treat your men as you would your own beloved sons, and they will follow you into the deepest valley. Now, of course, Sun Tzu has written this. Oh, my light went out. Wow, these lights don't last very long. Gonna have to quickly turn this light on. Give me 2 seconds. Sun Tzu is talking about a military scenario here, but Apologies. They're wireless lights, and I guess they only like have an hour in them. We've been going for an hour 15, which is super cool. It feels so, you know, it's felt short, but it's been great. Treat your men as you would your own beloved sons. They will follow you into the deepest valleys. So he's talking about troops, soldiers, but you can talk about this as if you have staff, if you have people that you work with, people on a team, you're in a sports team, or you have a team at work or whatever. Treat your man as you would your own beloved sons. Notice it doesn't say, and this when I looked at this one, I was like, oh, I really like this because it doesn't say make them feel like you treat them like that or act like they're that. It or behave like they're you're not trying to trick anyone here. You really are treating people great. You really are treating people great. Doesn't work if you're doing it in hopes that they will follow you. It works best if you genuinely want to treat people great and you really mean it. A good reason to treat people great is because it makes also you feel good, but it also makes them feel good. Treat people great. A secondary reason, a consequence of that is people treat you good and people will go the extra mile for you. But that's not the reason to do it, because if you're doing it for that reason, it's not real, right? It's very important to really treat your men as you would your own beloved sons. Treat your coworkers, your friends, your teammates, the people that you work with on a project, your training partners, whatever it is, treat them really well and really do it. It becomes easy. It becomes easy when that's your default. It's like, and nobody's going to bat 1,000. And when somebody, screws it up or you screw it up somehow and you treat somebody bad, forgive yourself. Also understand when somebody else does something, never go, oh, I saw their true colors. You didn't. Saw the worst of them. Sometimes the worst of people come out. If somebody treats people really, really good and is really kind and is really generous and really means it, every now and again, they're going to be a dick. That doesn't mean they're a dick. That means that they're really good. They're really good and they're also human. Right? But treat people good. If you treat people good, like it's so simple, but your life improves and their life improves. You have less stress and conflict. Everyone works harder. You work harder. Like it's one of these, again, there's a few things we talked about here today that feel like superpowers. And this is one of them. There's no reason not to be kind to people. It's better for them. It's better for you. It's better for life. It's you. Everything gets better. Like everything improves when you treat other people good. Like it's a real simple one, but it has to be real. I know it, and you all know it. When somebody's like trying to schmooze you, you're like, what does this person want? Why are they pretending? And I mean, sometimes if it's in a store or like some kind of business environment, it's because they're exhausted and they're just trying their best, and that's okay too. But sometimes people are like way too nice. You're like, and sometimes it's actually real. Like Stephen Thompson really is that nice. Like he really, really is. I've spent enough time in it. Like, oh, this isn't like this is actually Stephen Thompson really is that nice. Oh, okay, cool. He's one of those ones to be like, what does he want? And the truth is, he wants you to have a good day. Like, but this is one of those simple things in life, and we can all do it. And sometimes it's not always easy, but it gets easier. The more you do it, the easier it gets. The easier it gets, the more you do it. It's called a virtuous cycle. Just your life gets better. Treat people good. There's no reason not to. Absolutely no. We got a couple more, and then we're gonna hang a bit. It's been really fun. I'm gonna try to do a live, if not every week, a couple times a month, and then I'm gonna put up an Ask Robin Black at least 2 to 3 times a month. So we're gonna be on YouTube, but every week, one way or the other. All right. And I'm really like, I'm gonna walk out of this and go eat dinner with my wife and my daughter. I'm like, that was so fun. Do that almost every Thursday around this time if I can. Okay, couple more. And we're definitely doing this again. We're definitely doing this again. In fact, the very next live I do, if it is next Thursday, and I think it will be next Thursday, 5 Eastern. Also, like, can you hit the notification thing? Anyone? Like, if you know where that is, I don't know where that is. If there, please do that. That'd really mean a lot to me. You could do that. One may know how to conquer without being able to do it. Yeah, this one I saw too and thought about it. So there's two. First thought I had was you can know how to do a thing, but not be able to do a thing. And that's very true today. No, in theory, because we can learn how to do most things. When I when I first was solo, I didn't know how to do anything. I mean, so this is what my job was in 2016. I would put on a suit. I would build a breakdown of an analysis piece or be talking about the UFC after it happened with my buddy John Ramsey. We'd sit down at a desk and we'd talk. Then I'd build a piece with zooms and arrows and whatever. And I started doing those breakdowns, I think, honestly, I think it might be 2012. So that'd be 12 years I've been doing this type of sort of, and of course it's shifted. I don't even cover the UFC anymore. I now look at martial arts, primarily Bruce Lee, philosophy, these things, and it's great. And it's really fun. I get to, so things change, but I would sit down and talk, and then I would build sort of an analysis video, and I'd go walk over and do it. There was times where people even, put makeup on us, and we had an area in the back. We got dressed. Two people ran two cameras. Somebody set up the lights. Somebody worked the microphone. They shifted the things. They did everything. And then one day I didn't have the job, and I was like, okay, well, I got to figure out how to do this. Maybe I can make my own videos and put them on YouTube or Instagram or something. And so I looked, and I'm like, well, how do you edit videos? I'm like, I don't know. So I went on YouTube and I clicked in how to edit videos using iMovie, because that's what came free with my iPad. And a little 9-year-old girl was on there. She goes, okay, click this button. And I clicked the button, and she goes, drive this. Now you can press here. I'm like, if this kid can fucking edit videos, I got to be able to do it. And so we can learn anything. People learn how to build decks. I'm watching YouTube. I know people who have done that, literally like built things. So you can watch how to do anything. There's some channel I watch where a guy builds knives. And I looked, I'm like, how does this have 18 million views? But it's because it was really compelling. He showed you melt the metal, and you pour it in, you build the scabbard, and you put the handle, and it was so cool. And metal hardens, and you smash it and do all the stuff. And you watch enough of those, you're like, I know how to build a knife. Could you build a knife? No, you definitely couldn't build a knife. So that's true. So when I thought of this, that is true. But then I thought a layer deeper, which is one of the beautiful things about The Art of War, is every time you read it, it'll have different meaning. Like many great books, many books that religious people read are like that for them. And then philosophy books are like that. History books, more you know about history, look back at a moment in history, more you know about today and history, you look back and you see patterns, right? So most books that have some inherent value can be read many times because you're different. At the beginning of this, I said a man never steps in the same river twice, because it is not the same river and he is not the same man. And that's the same thing. You read a book, it is the same book, but you're not the same you, and the way you interpret words is not the same. The way you interpret ideas is not the same. So, so when you look back at it and you look a layer deeper, I think it may also mean you don't really know how to conquer. You might. I think this is a subtle way of saying you might think you know how to do it, but you might not know how to do it. And I take that from it because that's a really, really useful thing. The last sort of, I had a baby 2.5 years ago, and my life improved a lot and became special in all these different ways. But really, the last 5 years of my life have been a lot of improvement, like a lot of learning and a lot of understanding the world different. And my general happiness level is much higher. And, I have a successful business, and there's lots of reasons for that. But a lot of them is like studying yourself and looking at your own behavior, and then looking at why you do the things you do and what you could do differently and how you might change over time. And among them is I find I'm much happier when I realize how little I know, right? And I think this is really useful. We would be like, well, I know how to do there are definitely people who have do not do martial arts, who will tell you that they know what John Jones did wrong or whatever, right? Even though they're missing 90% of the information about a fight. And a fight I'm using as an example because it's my area of expertise. 90% of the information about a fight is only available in the experience. And you talk to fighters, you really sit down and you chat about it. They'll say the things people, even high-end fighters, the things they say about fighting are not actually real. They're narratives and the language that people use, and it's just the language that has evolved. Even Daniel Cormier, say, who's a multiple-time champion and a genius and a brilliant martial artist, when he talks about takedown defense, he never talks about that in a wrestling room. When he's teaching kids, That is not a term that is used in wrestling. No such term exists, right? Um, and no such concept exists. You would never try to just stop a takedown. You just wrestle, and in the act of wrestling, a takedown may be stopped, but also you may be reversed. You may improve your position. You may fatigue them. You never only have a single objective. You have a spider web of objectives. So that term will not even be used. But then even the great martial artists actually use it when they're in that environment. So imagine you're a person who actually doesn't know martial arts. You're hearing these things that are not even true, even for the greatest, and then you're interpreting them, missing all of the information. So if I sat down and chatted with Daniel about it, we could talk about that subject for like an hour, because he's got so much knowledge around that subject that simply those words, which are not actually correct in wrestling, end up making sense because they make sense to him and they make sense to me as we discuss it, and he educates me on some of the areas around it that I don't know nearly what he understands as a lifelong wrestler of the highest caliber. And now we'll know something about it. But if all you do is hear him talk and then you don't do, this is true of most things, right? So, and I know how little I've dedicated my life to studying martial arts, pro fights. I, was a competitor as a taekwondo athlete as a teenager, and then I competed in high level Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I fought, I analyzed, I cornered, I was a manager. I carried the bucket. I coached in corners, millions of things. And I realized how little I know. So if that's true about the thing I'm an expert at, how little I know of what's possible to be known, then what do I know about editing, or what do I know about infectious diseases, or whatever the thing we're arguing, politics? Like, I know nothing. Right? I know nothing about any of those things. If the thing I've dedicated my life to, all I've learned through, 20, 30,000 hours of study, whatever the maximum amount that could be at my particular age, started at 7, whatever that is, has left me with the knowledge of how little I know compared to what is possible to be known if I could live 100 more years and keep learning. Then what on earth do I know about anything? And that's a really powerful thing. So you think you know how to conquer, even though you can't do it, but you don't, right? Not the reason that I don't make picks. I don't, again, I just don't talk about mainstream fighting anymore at all. It's just not part of my job or art or career or whatever. And that's a really lucky thing, because I'm not connected to any weird large corporations and their schedules and their rules and whatever. So it's so beautiful. But so I don't, talk about much of that anyways, but I do have the odd partner that, I end up talking a little bit about here and there, and my own take on it. And sometimes people are like, well, who do you got, this or this? And my answer is honestly like, listen, like, uh, the 7 or 9 things we think we know, like if 2 fighters are fighting, which one got news that his mother is sick? Did either one? Did either one, like, have diarrhea today because they had a bad weight cut? Is either one of them had anxiety? Is there a headache? Is anyone like, there's thousands of things that are unknown that are more important than, this guy's a great striker and this guy defeated, the other guy he beat. Like, they're the least important things. So why try to, to guess what's going to happen in a beautifully complex thing using only the least important information, and because that's all that's available? It just makes no sense to me, right? But also it's because, like, you don't know. I mean, you don't know. And the not knowing, the being aware of how little you know, is so powerful, and it's so enlightening, and it opens you up to learn so much more, because you don't think you already know shit, you know you don't think you already know. I started doing, I was at jujitsu this week, and my friend Michael is the bass player in Nickelback, and he was in Toronto, and I took him to train, and we went to a place called Rain Martial Arts, REIGN, Rain. It's on Dundas here, and he's a purple belt. Michael's a purple belt, and I'm a purple belt, and I've been training jujitsu for now too long to still be a purple belt, but it's the nature of everyone's path is different. And they were doing different things in there, and then Nelson was like, I've got these day one guys, and both me and Michael were like, oh yeah, let's definitely take that. And Nelson was like, you guys sure? Like, you guys sure you just want to do like break falls and get ups and stuff? And we're like, yeah, definitely we want to do that. Because, and Nelson said to Michael, he was like, are you sure? Like, aren't you purple belt? And Michael goes, have I mastered anything? And Nelson's like, I don't know. And he's like, I haven't mastered. You'll never master anything. There's nothing, mastery, perfection is not possible in martial arts or almost anything, because you're already perfect. Go out in the forest and find me a beautiful tree and an ugly tree. There's no such thing, right? They're all trees. They're beautiful. They're perfect. All the trees are perfect, right? You're perfect already, but also you'll never be perfect, right? But yeah, we went back and did day one. It was awesome, right? And we did learn some things. We were reminded of some concepts. We were literally doing side control with something and regarding from side control. And there was one or two little things I was like, oh my God, it's like, I forgot. I've been doing this since 2006 or 7. It's going on 20 years, and I forgot this little, or never knew, or knew and it escaped me. And it's recognizing how little you know and constantly reminding yourself that if you were to live 100 more years, you would learn a great deal, and what you know today would be ridiculous. Therefore, it's pretty ridiculous. So don't hold on to it too tightly. Open yourself up to keep learning. Let's end on this one and then do a little hang on the way out the door. Attack is the secret of defense. Defense is the planning of an attack, or the preparation of an attack, or the precursor to attack. I actually put this one in here because I was like, how will we interpret that? The secret so the best defense is good offense, right? Like that's literally the modern interpretation of attack is the secret of defense, right? If I've got you defending, and this is not universally true, because literally you can defend and attack simultaneously. But if I and I like to do this sometimes, to think about your defenses as troops. You've got to, and your focus focus is a limited but renewable resource, right? Focus and attention. It's also fatigues, and it's harder to use, harder to deploy, and you have less of it as you get tired, right? But so focus and your defensive systems are troops, and you have to assign troops to something, right? So if you're attacking me in such a way that I have to assign troops to it, those troops cannot simultaneously, you cannot simultaneously block with this hand and punch with the other. I can, of course, block with this, punch with this. I can evade here while punching. I can slide out. Well, attacking and defending is possible. But once you start asking them to deploy troops into places, those troops are busy and are not, for the most part, in general, overly generalization, they're not attacking, right? There's something else. I'll put it up next time if we do this particular book again, although this idea has opened up many other ideas to me, is to ask him to attack where he's weak, and so forth. Is even something as simple as hit my body enough and my hands may be busy. I can also be tired. I can also have a hard time breathing, but whatever, they come down. And then now this opens up, because you cannot defend everything. If you could defend everything, there would be no such thing as fighting, right? So, I could defend parts of my head, but now my body is open. If I defend my head and my body by staying low, behind the ear is open. If I really work on all of that, kick my leg, right? It is, I can't check both legs at the same time, because I have to lift one, I have to stand on the ground. Like, if you have me shelling, you're attacking me enough to have me defending, that is a form of defense, because you are keeping me busy in such a way that there's less to defend. Therefore, it's a form of, and defense is the planning of an attack. So the wording maybe is iffy, but so I have a lot of different coaches that I work with in martial arts, and one of them is Evan Boris. He's a dear friend. And whenever I've trained with Evan, not whenever, but, and it's been a while since my Achilles was torn, I haven't really trained with him much, but I will. One of the things that, and he's a trained descendant as a coach of Henry Hooft. And you see Henry's guys, when off a certain block, there's always a strike, right? So the defense, catch the kick into the punch, catch the kick into the punch. It's a part of the process. It isn't a block and a punch. Block punch is like a hyphenated word. It's one phrase, right? And that's one example. There are thousands of examples. You go to any high level fighter and they have systems in which, one of my very favorite things, I worked with my coach Billy Martin for so many years. I would slip right hand. If you threw a punch at me and I slipped it, almost 100% the right hand would come after it because it was trained. It became a neural loop. You don't think, and this is actually something I find really interesting. The time it takes to say slip, block, punch, slip, block, and punch happen faster than the words. Therefore, you don't have time to think words, right? Fighting is too fast to think in words. So you have to supersede words. You have to go beyond words and just literally train neural loops so that it happens by itself. It's fascinating. We've been here for 90 minutes, which has been beautiful. And I'm super thankful for so many people that you've hung out. There's hundreds of people still here. I almost feel like it's rude to say thank you and go. But I'm starving, and my daughter goes to bed in 20 minutes, and I gotta kiss her before bed. But so let me just say this: thank you for hanging out, 300 of you. Across multiple platforms. I don't know where you're sitting and if there's only 9 on the one you're sitting on, but it's cool to have that many people hang out with you and think about something so fun like this. I've learned a lot by being able to think these things out loud, which is one of the reasons this is so fulfilling. And I will figure it out so I can get into the YouTube questions next time. And actually, I probably can get into some of them literally if I just open. I don't know if I just disappeared on you there when I opened. Actually, I could probably get into them right here. Should we try real quick? Literally, just click on YouTube and see if I can just look at some of the questions and take a few. That'd be really fun, right? My daughter, I can hear her downstairs, and my wife's going to be like, "I thought you were," and I'm going to be like, "Well, this was fun. I was into it." Okay. Something else. That's a sleep meditation that I use. I really find it to be great. Okay, how do you? There we go. You, Robin Black. Let's go in there. We got to turn it down because there I am. Oh wow, there's lots of comments. I have the book. Hello, Mr. Black. Thank you for sharing. If you don't appreciate his perspective, you don't have to watch Darkness. Oh, that was somebody who was negative. There's one negative comment in there, and the other guy was like, "Get out." So like YouTube, that's how it works. An amateur fighter. Hey man, I had 9 pro fights. Go fuck yourself. But thank you. I will figure out how to do this for next time. Thank you everybody who came and hung with me, and thank you to my friend Ant who's helping me sort all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to be doing this a lot more. And please follow. If you don't, I think you probably do because that's probably how you got here. But if you can do that notification thing, I would love to hang with you again this time next week. Thank you to everybody. And yeah, this truly has been a joy to do it. I will see you next week. Much love. Enjoy the hostilities, my friends. Black out.